It was where Krupp, the weapons manufacturer, used to take the German high command, and they would go into the Isle, on the Isle of Capri, into the Blue Grotto. And they would have big orchestras, and they'd bring in little boys, little Italian boys, who would be raped. They'd give them trinkets. And, of course, the mothers gradually found out, and just like me, it was one thing when there was just one of me. Now there are a lot more of us wives who are talking and telling truth. And it took those Italian women went to newspapers in Italy. They wouldn't listen. But when they went to the wives of these guys in Germany, it brought it all out. It brought the German government down because they were duplicitous in it, you know. But what they were doing was pedophilia. They were raping, bringing in little boys. They involved the Catholic priests, you know, who were bringing in all. Anyway, so, but what happened was this whole group came over to the United States. And they, it's an old culture, but it is the reason there are a lot of things going on with children these days. And it explains why it's all being covered up, because if you've got police officers who are playing these games and they're going in the woods like to, what is this place where, I mean, even Eisenhower played these games. Even Mike Kemp out in, it's called the Hermitage in California, where they all run, they get drunk and they run around nude in the woods and stuff. That's it, Bohemian Grove. And the one in, there was a big one in Washington called Rush River Lodge, where they used to all go, and there are lots of places now. But the problem, as I see it, is that I think they're trying to destroy America and the basic Protestant Christian culture, because where you have a militaristic society, which is where the rules are only for those people, and keep in mind that Meyer Lansky and Luciano, Lucky Luciano, and the other man, they chose to go to Italy. Luciano went to Milan. He wasn't banished to Naples and Milan. The two top mob families went there because of the weapons industry. They're selling weapons. I mean, that's what the military is doing. It's totally controlled by the mob. Look at this. Weinberger was General Douglas MacArthur's. He spied on MacArthur in Korea. Who was MacArthur's nemesis? Albatross. It was none other than little old intelligence. I'm going to tell every move you make. Weinberger. Young, but he did it. He brought down MacArthur. Every move MacArthur was going to make, he broadcast it through the chaplain, or his little intelligence network. And he got brownie points with the group because he brought down the big lion. When you get rid of a big lion like that, you get a big job. You've done good work. And they needed to get rid of MacArthur because he didn't want to keep the wars going. He wanted it over, and you know, it's like General Trefay, who took over after the Vietnam War was over, and he was on C-SPAN in August of '96 with former Ambassador Whitehead and a few of the other the State Department Vietnam people. And General Trefay, he had been holding this in for years. He was on C-SPAN. This man let it all out. He said, I took over at the end of the Vietnam War. I was in control, right? Big general charge. So I say, cut off the shipment of weapons. So I tell the Pentagon, cut off the shipment of weapons. He said, I got a phone call from Henry Kissinger saying the weapons are going to continue at the wartime rate. Now, that's when all this stuff with China started. It started before then, because already the communist agents, the New York, Brooklyn, New Jersey mob, were already training Mao. Mao was trained in Paris. So was, you know, the one in Cambodia. What's his name? I can't think of his name. The one who was Pol Pot.
Yeah.
They were homosexually, bless their little hearts, by priests. They were wonderful little boys sent there, you know, turned, which is the word, you know, when they believe their mothers, and then all of a sudden the world's horrible, and then they have these wonderful friends who are going to make them leaders.
Yeah.
They're turned psychologically, and it's a pattern. And so this is why it's so important to know what they are doing to innocent little boys in the Army and the Marine Corps today. Why? Why are they having them go together in groups and strip nude when they're brand new inductees? Why do they do certain things in public in front of the group? But they also turn around the other way after doing that. The other way, and they're upside down. And they do this anally. Now, why do they do that in public? Why are the urinals all out in public, you know, without separate stalls?
Yeah.
If they're not promoting this. And then why is it that the ones who are this way rise up faster than the ones who don't? Rising stars. I think that's the word the State Department uses for those who are controlled. And when I was volunteering with the State Department as an escort in Virginia, I had this group called, I thought it up myself, VIVA, Virginia International Visitors Association. And I tried so hard to get to be a part of the State Department family. But you know, I'm a Christian, see, I'm a Protestant Christian, and they don't want Christians in there. My goodness. You know, I would have guests, and I would let them know I was a Christian and that I love them, and Virginia's a wonderful place. And
Yeah.
But I couldn't be a part of that.
No.
They sent me people, but Sarah is a Democrat. See, I was a Republican all these years. I was married for 21 years to a Democratic governor's grandson. It was an arranged marriage, and so I knew a lot of the high-level Democrats who were really sort of conservative. It's hard, you know, in Virginia, they're very conservative. So when I stayed with Sarah McClendon, I had become a Republican, you know. And Sarah told me a lot of the things that were going on in the White House from her insider perspective, which totally challenged my perspective on everything. You know, Ron Brown was murdered, for example.
Sure.
Vince Foster was murdered. Forstall was murdered. He told me, which really startled me and frightened me, was his attitude towards murder, which he said was not murder, because he said emotions are not involved. His cold, calculating view of the destruction of innocent human beings meaning nothing to him, having absolutely no feelings about ordering others to do that. Oh, of course, yeah. In fact, he told me about Malcolm Kerr's murder. Malcolm Kerr was a British double agent who worked in California. He was one of these joint, these intelligence operatives who worked for both sides.
Okay.
And he had been in California, but he was doing intelligence work in Beirut, undercover. He was the head of the American University of Beirut, AUB, which is in Lebanon.
Okay.
Now, my husband was the liaison between the White House and President Jamal, the brother of the first president who was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
My husband was involved with assassinations and operations.
Okay.
He was very upset with Malcolm Kerr because Malcolm Kerr refused, although they were already there, the Marine snipers, the assassins, who were under my husband and General Joy, and Al Gray, of course, were hiding in the dormitory at this university. And, of course, General Gray, General Krulak, General Wilhelm, now Charlie Wilhelm was there. He is now my husband's special boss. And they were undercover there. And they had Malcolm Kerr murdered. Simply because Malcolm Kerr would not allow the Marines to stay in the dormitory. Had I been Malcolm Kerr, I wouldn't have wanted rowdy Marine assassins living in a dormitory with children, essentially, adolescent young children, having set, with their perversion and some of their behaviors. So he was put away for that very reason, George. No, he told me that he had to be gotten rid of because of that. He then said that, and oh, this is interesting, Mary Clark Yost Halab my husband is handled by her. She is an American double agent who was put on my husband's case because she could handle him. They had an affair, of course, while my husband was first married. I found out about it because she called the house after we were married and wanted to talk to him. And I found in his papers a photograph of her and her bio and all kinds of information on her. And her address in his address book, and I want you all to see that in this movie. I have a photograph of her. They had a long-term affair the whole time he was in Beirut, while she was married to an Arab intelligence double agent who was underneath Malcolm Kerr.
Okay.
And who took over